Welcome to Super Movie Brothers. Let's start the show.
This is a podcast on the Podfix Network. You can check out more shows like it at podfixnetwork.com.
Welcome to Super Movie Brothers, episode 169. We're in our 30s.
We're
and we still laugh every time we hear 69.
If you guys are really us, what number are we thinking of? 69, dudes!
I'm your host, Super Movie Brother Dave.
I'm your host, Super Movie Brother Jay.
Hey Jay, what'd you get down to doing this week?
It's been 1 week since you looked at me. Cocked your head to the sides and I'm angry.
Did you do anything fun? Did you get down to doing anything you would like to tell everyone about? Please tell everyone about the video you sent me today.
I did, and that's by far the most interesting that's ever happened to me recently. I had a cyst on the top of my head, kind of like where a unicorn would be on your head. Kind of top, front, center. Boom. Had it for the last few years. I'm not the biggest doctor person, and it never bothered me other than it was a hard lump that was developing. And I finally went to a dermatologist, and she was very nonchalant about it. She's like, yeah, okay, I don't think that's anything to be worried about. I'll get it checked out afterwards.
I had a
quick process.
I had a lump earlier this year that they had to remove, and remember that was like a bloody affair. I was bleeding all over the place from mine. So
I had this removed, and she initially said, oh, it was ruptured, so it's not going to pop out like a golf ball, like she initially said, and I remembered mentioning this a couple of days ago with my cousin, and he was like, dude, I love that show, Dr. Pimple Popper, or whatever like that. And he's like, you got to record that or something like that. I'm like, really?
Who was holding the phone for you?
I did it. I was literally just laying on the table, and I just kind of held it up, and I was looking at it, and I was just trying to zoom it in.
I'm sure the doctor loved you getting your phone in the way, by the way.
I'm sure she's used to it.
Okay.
I actually joked about it beforehand. I was like, well, my cousin, I just literally said that. I was like, well, is this going to be video worthy? And she's like, well, I'll find out. I'll let you know. And her assistant wasn't there for some reason in the room, and she just did it all of herself. And I was like, you mind if I record? And she's like, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. And then you proceeded to send your friend that video.
Exactly.
You call yourself my friend, and you send me this video. Now,
I gave so many people. Nobody ate lunch today that I know in my inner circle.
So
everybody was repulsed.
It's only 11 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
Now, that's not early for me. It's not late, but it is still coffee time for me. And if I'm on coffee time, Jay, then I don't want to be seeing disturbing shit, like your head oozing pus out of it as a doctor squeezing it. And she's like, oh, it's done. And then I hear her go, wait, I found a little bit more. And she pushes it, and more of this just
cottage cheese just
comes out,
shooting, squiggling out.
And then she does find a fucking golf ball inside your
head. She does.
And
she was a little upset that she didn't tell me when she's like, oh, it was crowning, and it actually came out really video worthy. And I was like, oh, fuck. But I was able to take a photo of the little sack that she pulled out.
The worst part is you never turn off the live photos from your iPhone. So your iPhone is always sending live photos. So if you hold it down, it moves, and she's holding it with these forceps, and it's just dangling there like she removed one of your testicles. It was absolutely disgusting.
Yeah, it was a weird thing because I've never had anything more than a couple stitches in my finger, sprained ankle, a fractured finger. I've never had any medical issues before in my life. So this was I
don't care. You gave me you gave me a medical issue today.
Yes.
The medical issue being I couldn't finish my coffee. So thanks, asshole.
I know.
I hate you for
You
that.
were not alone today, believe me. But yeah,
move.
It's weird. It's weird. So I'm feeling okay. I just take occasional Tylenol if I start feeling a little woozy or something, or if I feel a little weird pressure up there. But
Well, now I know if you step out of line tonight, all I got to do is smack you on top of the head.
yeah, I'm not fucking washing my hair anytime soon.
So for me this week, I didn't get down to doing a whole lot, but on Saturday I did take Logan for a hike. I decided that like it's been a little while since we've gotten out of the house. She's in school now, and one of the things that school does for kids is it gives them more stamina. Like they start spending 7 to 8 hours a day at school, awake, active, doing stuff. And I realized that like if I don't get her out and do stuff on the weekends, all the energy just gets bottled up and it gets pushed right back to me. So I was like, all right, let's grab the dog. Let's go to the state park. Let's go for a hike. So we took a hike, and it was nice. My daughter was wearing cowboy boots because it's a little muddy back there. So I wanted to make sure that she didn't, get mud all over herself and stuff like that. I wanted to make sure that she was able to walk through the trails and stuff. So I put these boots on her, and the first few minutes that we're there, she sees the creek and goes and runs right into the creek. And I keep telling her, like, make sure the water doesn't go above your boots. The dog proceeds to jump into the water. So I'm trying to wrestle with him to get him out of the water, and I turn around and Logan's up to her knees in water. So I get her out of the water, and I was like, are your feet wet? And she's like, nope. I was like, of course, there's literally like a cup of water around her foot. So I had to take her boots off. I had to take her socks off, put them in one of the dog poop bags, put those in my pocket, dump it out, and she had to go barefoot in her boots for the whole rest of the time that we were there. And then she's like, oh, I want to go to the boat ramp. There's like canoe rack there. So we go to the boat ramp, and there's like this dock, and she goes running up to the dock, but the dog is chasing her, and she stops at the edge of the dock. Dog doesn't stop at the edge of the dock, and he goes 10 feet into the water, and I only had a very short 4-foot leash because you have to keep Luca on a short leash when you're at the park because there's a lot of other dogs, and he is the type of dog that just wants to get right up into their face and go, hi.
I'm obnoxious.
So I had to then let go of his leash, and then I had to go into the water to get him out.
Oh my God, dude. I wish that was on video.
Luckily, he was so freaked out by being like away from me that he just froze and stood there in the water. And he's like, "What do I do? What do I do? What do I do?" So I had to come in to get him out. And then,
I'm surprised you were able to drop that in time, to be honest, because you are pretty tight with him.
No, just I as soon as I saw him go, I was like, "Well, nice knowing you, Luca. Good luck. Good luck going down the waterfall, pal. I'll see you on the other side, maybe." So we went through this hike in the woods. She saw this big green rock, just like covered in moss, and she just really wanted to like sit on top of it.
They
and
are
take
cool
a picture.
looking.
Yeah,
they are cool looking.
She wanted to take a picture,
and they feel cool, especially as a kid like that. They're just dangerous as far as climbing on these.
She literally like comes.
Slippery.
She comes down off the rock and she's like, "Put that on Instagram." Like a little Instagram girl. She's 6.
She's going
5.
to be so sassy.
And then we start walking, and she starts seeing hoof prints in the ground because these trails that were on are horse trails. So she starts running ahead. She wants to find the horse. And she keeps running ahead. We never found the horse, but she did find something that all little kids think are hilarious. So when she talks about her hike this weekend,
Poopy,
she talks about the big massive pile of horse shit that she found. So like
it's everywhere in that park.
I drop her off to school on Monday, and a little bit of her separation anxiety, not wanting me to leave and stuff like that. I was like, tell your teacher about the park, about the hike you went on, all the cool things we saw. Like I dug in the creek, I found her crayfish, I found her salamanders, and I was showing her all these animals and stuff like that. And she turns around and she looks right at her teacher and she goes, "I saw a big pile of horse poop."
Poop again! He called the shit poop!
I was like, I'm glad that's what you took away from your 3-hour adventure in the woods, is that you saw a big pile of horse poop.
Look, everything is new to her, so gotta love it.
All right, Jay, before we get into the rest of the show, we got our It review coming up later on in the episode. So I reached out to our listeners on social media, as promised, in regards to our top 5 list last week, the top 5 cult movies. So Jay, let's get into our question of the week.
You could ask yourself a question. Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk?
It just raises too many questions.
Excuse me. I'd like to ask you a few questions. The answer to the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything.
All right, Jay. First up, we got the IMDb Journey podcast. They said Clerks and Reservoir Dogs. Bravo, Dave. So that's a vote for me, buddy. Then we got Duty from Shaken Not Nerd. And he said, Dave had it, but then Evil Dead 2, number 1. Duty is just like you, not a fan of the Evil Dead, buddy. So that's one for you.
Nice.
Invasion of the Remake podcast said we're gonna have to go with Dave on this one. So many great films on this list. Then we got Movie Reviews in 20 Questions podcast said Dave for the win. So that's now 3 for me, 1 for you, Jay. Ziggy, he reached out to us on Twitter and he said Napoleon Dynamite all the way. So
there we go.
It's now 3-2, Jay.
Come back.
Geek Elite Media said Dave wins it with Reservoir Dogs alone. So now it's 4-2, buddy. Intoxicated since 1999 on Twitter said Jay for the win, but his favorite cult movie is Flash Gordon. So Jay, it is now 4-3. And then the real Mr. Positive said Dave.
Damn.
Yeah. So it's now 5-3. But Jay, you got one final vote here. The Contrarians podcast said, first off, he said, bro, Reservoir Dogs as a cult movie? No. He doesn't think it is. I think 100% is. That movie was made for under $1 million. Totally made on a cult budget. And
but not just that, it was also not a huge hit when it came out.
Exactly.
It grew.
What the reason that makes it a cult is, sure, Quentin Tarantino is famous because of that movie, and that movie is popular. But it definitely had...
It is a cult movie.
It's a cult movie, 100%. So he says that Jay wins it for Swingers and Clueless, Jay. So the end on there is 5-4, buddy. I still managed
I'll take it. I put up a good fight.
You did put up a good fight. I managed to squeak out the win in the end. I got that up late, so we didn't get a whole lot of responses to it. All right, question of the week out of the way. I figured it'd be a good time to get into our news for this week. All right, Jay, first news story. This one, near and dear to my heart. I am actually kind of excited for this, although it is another remake. But there is a remake of the wonderful John Woo film starring John Travolta and Nick Cage. Face Off is getting a reboot.
Hallelujah! Hallelujah!
I know.
Do you
with the guys behind the Fast and the Furious franchise,
but
which makes sense.
But do you reboot something that is just that much schlock that it's resonated to this day because of how hokey and schlocky that it is?
That's what's so shocking about it. It must be because, like I said, the Fast and the Furious guys are behind it, and they have a lot of clout because they make fucking money.
Can they please keep the scene where Nicolas Cage walks up to the choir singer?
Well, they're not using Nicolas Cage and John Travolta.
But whatever actor you get, as long as he walks up to a girl, grabs her ass, and goes, best scene in that movie, hands down.
Can relate.
It's your introduction to his character.
Well, I'm sure you remember. I know some of our listeners definitely know that I quite adore that movie.
Oh yeah,
it is one of my favorite '90s cheese action movies. I love to this day. I love Nick Cage's guns. Like, his guns are the tits to me. Like, they are the coolest guns there are. And I don't know how to feel about that. I'm not really excited, to be honest. I love this movie for what it is. I don't need it to be rebooted.
What bothers me most is they're rebooting movies that came out during our lifetime now. That's what bothers me most.
Right.
Like, wait until I'm dead in the ground, at least, before you start remaking these. Because, we were getting remakes of 80s movies, 70s movies, but now we're in the era where 90s movies are being remade.
Are we going to do Air Force One next? Again?
Get off my plane! Can we just bring Harrison Ford back for that one again? Air Force One, too.
It's just weird. It's a weird time in Hollywood where it's funny how the marketplace has evolved into Still massive movies. But also, the indie game is strong right now with A24. They're still holding ground. They're still doing really interesting original content. But the streaming service stuff is bringing back that mid-budget movie.
Yeah, we've talked
and
about that
becoming a little bit more
since episode 1. That's what we've talked about.
It's kind of interesting right now. But all the high concept stuff is not original stuff normally, unless you're Christopher Nolan, where he's got Tenet coming out next year, which is original.
Hey man, we still got Upgrade. We still got Upgrade last year. I found that pretty original. I like that movie.
I'm talking about big budget.
Yeah.
And so we'll see.
Next news story. All right, Jay, speaking of reboots and speaking of Margot Robbie, oh, you didn't mention Margot Robbie? Well, she seems to be everywhere now. I always assume that someone is talking about her somewhere at some time.
Yeah.
Her production company is going to get into another reboot. She will be rebooting Tank Girl based on the indie comic book. You may remember there was a Tank Girl movie way back in the early 90s, but now they are going to be rebooting it. Tank Girl, it's kind of like this crazy character. She is a girl in a tank.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna get much deeper into the story than that, but
I guess
she definitely fits the character. She definitely fits like the title role, much like the original Tank Girl did, who was played by Lori Petty. You may remember her from Free Willy, like what I remember her from, or she's also recently been in like the past 4 or 5 seasons of Orange is the New Black. Also, Margot Robbie, it's her production company. No one has said Margot Robbie's playing Tank Girl.
Yeah, she has a lot of things in development. It's going to take some time. I don't think this is in any rush to get to the screen. So
I don't think she'll even star in it. I really don't. Maybe they'll get the girl from Ready or Not, who's kind of like her dollar store version of her.
Yeah, maybe.
So yeah, I don't know whether I'm looking forward to it because I don't have fond memories of the original Tank Girl.
Yeah, I never saw it.
Yeah, it took place on a dystopian Earth where riding war tanks was like a thing, and she went up against a tyrannical mega corporation that was kind of like running the world. And it's interesting. It's a little Mad Maxy, but a little bit more stylized than that. A little bit
more fun, a little more humor.
A little bit more humor could be injected into it for sure. Given Margot Robbie's relationship with Warner Brothers, I would fully expect that her production company would make it. Warner Brothers would distribute this in the end.
Yes.
So I don't know whether anyone else is looking forward to this. I am not per se, but if you
let us know if you are.
Yeah, let us know on the socials if you are interested in a Tank Girl reboot. Next news story. All right, Jay, the movie we're going to be reviewing tonight, It Chapter 2, is the second biggest horror movie opening of all time. It's the biggest box office weekend for a horror movie.
Not surprised.
In second, Jay, do you know what the number one horror movie is? It's It. So, congrats to Andy Muschietti because he went from the guy who directed Mama to being pretty much a household name in just under 2 years. So, good on him. And, we'll talk about our thoughts on It Chapter 2, but we talked about on our Patreon episode, which is still available for all of you guys who aren't on our Patreon. Go over to patreon.com/supermoviebros podcast. Become a patron for just $1. You can get that episode where me and Jay made an original cocktail for It and discussed it. That film, 100%, I think, earned that top spot. I want to say, is it the best horror movie of all time? No, but did it speak to a general audience in a way?
In many levels,
you're right. It kind of used itself to. It took a lot of stuff that was going on, in media at the time, and kind of just brought it all together and presented itself in such a way that was so popcorn worthy, so digestible, so easy for people to pick up and jump in on. And,
but yet still kind of R-rated, very grounded, and also 100%. Grounded with youth
100%
and development.
I think I honestly, and I say this because I think this is the case. If Stranger Things wasn't as big of a thing as it was when it came out, it wouldn't have been as popular.
I agree. No, I agree. I 100% do.
I think I'm not saying its style ripped from it, but I'm saying the fact that these stories about youth in the yesteryear has kind of become such a big thing in the zeitgeist that it happened to kind of come in at this right time where people
were a perfect storm.
We're enjoying that stuff and really wanted to go look at the story. Not to mention, it's something that in the 1990s, the Stephen King in the book, it wasn't as popular as it is nowadays. And all of us who went to the theaters to see it were those kids watching the original It secretly when our parents weren't looking around on ABC back when we were kids. So It Chapter 2, whether, it's deserved or not, like I said, not the best horror movie, but it's worth it. But we'll give our thoughts on It Chapter 2 coming up later on in the episode. Next news story. Todd Phillips' Joker movie. It has won the Golden Lion Award from the Venice Film Festival.
Yes.
So it earned top spot there. And according to a lot of the early buzz for it, it is damn near a perfect movie.
Now, obviously, I am excited for this one. However, this is going to be a hard thing to digest because from what I hear, yes, it is supposed to be very brilliant. And at the same time, almost repulsive. So I don't know exactly what direction it gets especially towards the end there. I'm assuming it ends with a bang and a lot of
my only question is if
diabolic kind of behavior, perhaps. But
if it's appealing to the film circuit crowd, if it's appealing to your crowd, Jay, is it going to appeal to the general audience?
That's what I'm curious about because they appreciate something different that they're not expecting, the high art stuff. That's where I think it's going towards. I think it's definitely pushing the limit, pushing the envelope. I think the average moviegoer is going to probably not like it as much.
But we could,
But again, it is R-rated, so you got to know what you're getting yourself into. It's a fucking Joker movie, R-rated.
You could be wrong though in the fact that it's coming in a packaging like the Joker title being put on top of it and everything like that. That is something that's familiar to people and something that kind of breaks the barrier of their entry into it a little bit, and it may also allow them to kind of enjoy it a little bit more, where if you made this just an average comedian who lost his mind and went all Michael Douglas in Working Man where he loses his mind.
It does pay tribute to King of Comedy a lot. They've always said that, and it's a very physical, unnerving performance from Joaquin that gives him, he puts all of himself into it, and it's gonna be a feast for its eyes. I mean, I'm really excited for this one. It comes out very soon, actually, so looking forward to that.
I'm sorry, the Michael Douglas movie that I was thinking of, Jay, that I was talking about was Falling Down. That's the movie that I was thinking of, not Man at Work, which is actually Men at Work. And I got a lot of movies that rattle around inside my head. I don't always pop out with the right answer, but feel free to scream at me on the socials about how much I suck. That's fair.
We know that.
Haley Atwell, we kind of just talked about her on a Patreon episode that we recorded for a Captain America thing. She's Peggy Carter in the Captain America series, Peggy Carter on TV, and reportedly she's not done with the MCU if rumors are to be believed, but she's also getting herself into another franchise that has a very long history. She has now been cast in the next Mission Impossible movie, and I'm wondering what role she's going to play. I'm hoping she's playing the villain or a villainous role in some way. I don't
care, but I love her, so I'm down for anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think she's going to fit. I think she's got the look. I think she's going to fit the series rather well, and I'm looking forward to it. It could be really cool. And it'd be good to see her play the bad girl.
I hope so. I really hope that she's playing a villain. It'll be something that's a complete departure for her,
and she needs to. She needs to keep things a little mixed up. Yeah, she's been playing the good girl for too long.
Yeah, even her Black Mirror episode. She was kind of playing the good girl. I mean, there's some depth there for sure. I think.
Oh yeah, and that was what, 3 years ago. So
good, more than that probably. It's probably about 5 or 6 years ago. But yeah, I look forward to seeing her in that. Actually, coming up soon, I'm going to have to watch all of the Mission Impossible films because I think I've missed the past 2, I want to say, maybe, or maybe I just missed the most recent one.
Oh, how dare you?
Yeah,
I think the latest one is on Amazon Prime now.
They're all available streaming somewhere. Okay. I looked it up this weekend, so I'll have to give them all a rewatch. Next news story. George of the Jungle, Brendan Fraser, is completely out of money. And I know that he's completely out of money because he's down to do another Mummy sequel. He just wants Universal to know. If the one that took place in China didn't really get you going, I'm down to come back.
Dust off that wig.
Yep.
Oh my God.
Dust off Arnold Vosloo to come back as Emotep.
Yeah, I mean,
What would you think of them returning to the Mummy now with Brendan Fraser now? I mean,
No.
the way he looks. You wouldn't want this.
No.
Your nostalgia
I got
boners
no
don't.
nostalgia for that.
Your nostalgia
I don't
boner
want
doesn't
it.
go that deep.
No, not at all. Not at all. I don't want it. I don't need it. I'm still a little sour from the Tom Cruise film.
It's
and
funny.
I don't want it.
I don't want it. I don't need it. Are the same words that a girl said to you on a Bumble date.
Touche. Yeah.
You just unzipped and she's like, I don't want it. I don't need it. I don't need it. You know what? I got this in my drawer over here.
Yeah, I'm going to go home. Yeah.
It's better than you.
Yeah.
All right. Next news story.
It's like, can I at least watch?
All right, man. Sony's CEO, Tony Vinciquerra, wants you to know, Jay, that the door is closed on the Spider-Man deal with Disney and Marvel. It's over. Sony is going to take their ball. They're going to go home. We talked about this a lot. Who's at fault? It looks like Disney's mostly at fault for this all falling apart, but it also seems like Sony was just kind of ready to do their own thing with the character now. Also, it looks like both sides really weren't willing to budge. MCU feels that they can survive without the character. Sony believes the character can survive without the MCU universe. Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is fine. I think it's fine. We talked about this. I think it's okay that they go separate ways.
We're okay with it. I'm just happy that they were quick about just like a Band-Aid thing. You just rip it off. Just give the bad news.
I don't think it's done.
Say that it's over. Let people move on from that.
I don't think it's done, Jay.
I think it's done for now.
Once the door's been opened once, you can open it again.
What's the point, Ventura? Only this.
It can always
but
be
not
open
for another
again.
5 years.
No, I don't think. I think the next Spider-Man movie will be sans MCU. MCU will move on. It's very possible that if Sony hits a hiccup with the character or anything like that, that they may be willing to open up the deal, which will give Disney a huge bargaining chip where it's like,
you could not live with your own failure. Where did that bring you? Back to me.
You're my bitch.
No, I was just doing Thanos, Jay. Yeah. And then, of course, the possibility still exists. However, in the near future, probably not. And Tom Holland actually had a response where, he says that while it's regrettable that this isn't going on, he thinks that the legacy of Spider-Man will rest in the safe hands at Sony. So that's paraphrased, but he thinks that it's in safe hands. He has some trust in the people over there, or he works for them and he wants to continue making money, so he's going to say all the nice things to continue making money.
Yeah.
So
that's essentially what that is.
Yeah. And there ain't no good guys, there ain't no bad guys. It's just business, baby. This is just how it works out.
And to be honest, he needs to milk that cow a little longer. Everybody loves him. He still is going to look the part as Peter Parker for some years ahead.
Absolutely.
He's got that baby face look to him, and build.
So time to play nice.
There's stories to tell.
But what a great thing for a kid his age, where he now has a working relationship with two of the biggest studios in Hollywood now, right? He's got a working relationship with Sony, and he has a good working relationship with Disney. I believe he has
with the audience. Everybody loves him.
Several Disney movies that are coming up. He obviously has Spider-Man with Sony. Dude, the kid's going to be just raking in the cash.
And just a friendly reminder, if anybody has not seen that dance show when he was, what the hell is that thing called?
Lip Sync Battle?
Lip Sync Battle.
Yeah.
With him against Zendaya.
Produced by John Krasinski.
Yes, and Emily Blunt. Yeah. It was woo.
Yeah.
He is a talented entertainer. I'll tell you that.
When he dresses in drag and goes full Billy Elliot on everybody.
It was full on Billy Elliot right there. That was.
Also, another fun thing to check out about Tom Holland is my favorite thing is watching his interviews with Benedict Cumberbatch because he's so big at spoiling everything.
YouTube that, guys. It's fun.
They had to stick Benedict Cumberbatch with him so that he could filter everything that Tom Holland was going
Literally
to say.
his job. Exactly.
It was his job. It's funny.
Keep him in check.
Also,
and you can see it.
Check out Anthony Mackie's reactions to Tom Holland, because he's like, yeah, man, this kid, when we met him in Civil War, he was just a kid who just happened to be on set. He comes rolling up to Infinity War in his Ferrari, and I'm like, get out of here. They have like this thing where he pretends to hate him. which for some reason cracks me up because I love it. So yeah,
which I don't think is true anyway. I think he's just
it's just fun. It's just fun,
embellishing the whole thing.
Anthony Mackie is this. He's this very brash like personality.
Yes.
If you watch a lot of the behind the scenes stuff in the MCU films, his big thing is like cut the check. Like after every good take, cut the check.
Well, he is a talent for sure.
For sure.
He always has been. But he's also very much like a brash, ballsy guy's guy. Like he's very alpha.
Here's what I see it as. He's a
drinker.
He's like an athlete.
He owns his own bar in Brooklyn or something like that.
He's like an athlete. When you know you're good at something, you develop an ego about it, and that's what it is. It's not. I would say it's not an unhealthy ego, at least from what I've seen in interviews and stuff.
Not from what I gather. I think he's still a team player.
Right. It's like a fun air to his ego and stuff like that. So anyway, Spider-Man no longer with the MCU. We knew that, but Sony now confirming deal is done, never coming back. Just get it out of your heads now. We're all moving forward, and I think it's okay for us as fans to just say it was a fun time we had with you, Spider-Man, and we're going to continue to enjoy you in your own universe. And what's going to be really interesting is to find out how these two studios now move on after being married and stuff like that, how they're going to move on, share without sharing the custody of Spider-Man now, like because he seemed to be so integral to, at least on the Sony end in his own solo movies, he seemed to be so integral to the MCU. And how does the MCU write him out now and not touch on him? Like they're going to have to make some concessions where like
perhaps
things can be mentioned, but as long as no one ever shows up or anything like that, then no one owes anybody money.
I'm intrigued to see how they go about doing it.
It'd certainly be interesting. All right, Jay, we got to get down to finding out, what are you watching?
What are you watching?
What are we watching?
He's trying to watch some illegal channel.
Always watching.
No, go past this part. In fact, never play this again.
All right, Jay, usually we start off with you, but you have a review to do this week. So we're going to get started off with me this time. Really, dude, all I watched this week, I watched 2 movies because of the whole Sony Spider-Man thing. I went back and I watched The Amazing Spider-Man and The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Interesting times with that movie.
Yeah, I'm surprised you went back to that one.
So, I mean, I own them, and they're just sitting there collecting dust. So, I was like, I'm going to give them a shot. I'm going to watch them over again, see my thoughts on them again. Now, I had
a good time with the first one.
I liked The Amazing Spider-Man. I enjoyed it a lot, but I realized what those movies did really well was show what Spider-Man means to people. In the first one, there's that scene that happens on the bridge where he's rescuing the kid from the car, and you get that moment of like what Spider-Man means to people. And then there's that beautiful scene at the end, where all the cranes line up so that he could web sling all the way over to Oscorp and stop the lizard and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Loved those moments. And Amazing Spider-Man 2, as bloated and as crazy and as bad as the villains were and all the problems that it had with it, it still does those little moments really well. Like that moment that he steps up for the kid, who eventually ends up dressing up as him at the end, and he stops him. He's like, and he web whips his science project and he fixes it, and he's like, and he tells him, it's like, this is a wind turbine. This is cool, and he walks him home. He walked like a superhero, just walks him home from school.
Yeah.
Like it's all the things that Tony Stark.
Friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
They did the friendly neighborhood part so well. They failed in a lot of aspects in those movies, but what they did really well is the friendly neighborhood aspect that I felt was missing in the MCU Spider-Man movies. So I'm kind of hoping that maybe Sony can give us that Spider-Man a little bit to let us know, like.
But granted, they are different in ages and going through things.
No, they were the same age. He was in high school. Peter Parker was in high school in that one. He graduates high school at the beginning of the second one. So no, they're playing around the same age.
I thought
they were made in a different age.
All right. So yeah, okay.
Just because Andrew Garfield was 35 when he put on the mask, and Tom Holland
I just keep feeling like Tom Holland is more like 10th grade.
So like
high school, and like Andrew Garfield's like 12th grade
very
high
much
school
not
kind
so.
of thing. I don't know.
Junior and senior in Amazing Spider-Man, and then in Homecoming and Far From Home, he's probably junior and senior level as well. So it's not so much age difference of the character, but definitely a lot of people like to get on Tobey Maguire for being the old man Spider-Man back in the day, like being 30 while playing. Andrew Garfield was like 32 when he first put on the mask. Like he was up there. He was actually older in his first Spider-Man outing than Tobey Maguire was in his first. So.
But that's old school classic studio models. They always age down the guys. And
when they do close-ups on Andrew Garfield, I was like, holy shit, that dude's got crow's feet. And he's playing a high school kid. He's got crow's feet.
But again, like he had the voice, and there is some charm about him with
100%.
playing Spider-Man, and Peter Parker. So I have mixed emotions with that. It's just the fact that the film, the second one at least,
but what I'm saying,
isn't good.
Going back to it, I just realized how well they did the friendly neighborhood stuff.
And that's great.
And I really loved the ending of Amazing Spider-Man 2. Not like, the whole fight with Green Goblin stuff. That was terrible. I just like the idea of him showing up to save that little kid, and he goes into the fight. And they don't show his fight with the Rhino because, do we really care about that fight? Like, no one gives a shit about that fight. But how easily the Rhino's mech suit could have fit into the Iron Man universe, it's kind of funny. But now the MCU's gone completely. But, they did that stuff really well. I think there's a lot of failures with those movies, but going back and knowing that you're going to be watching it for these failures, you can watch for the good stuff in it. This time around, and I think there was good enough stuff in there that I maybe would have watched a third if they had learned from their mistakes from 2 for that series. 100% more, 100% happier with what we got going forward with the Tom Holland Spider-Man. I'm just hoping that with Sony back in charge, we can get a little bit more of personal Spider-Man stories. Other than that, man, Lauren's been watching Mindhunter.
Good for her.
She hadn't started it, so she's watching it. So which means I'm rewatching it, except I'm not allowed to talk because I know way too much about the serial killers and the people behind the show and stuff.
Yeah, and you would drive her crazy.
And I would drive her nuts, so I'm just not allowed to talk. So I have to watch it while keeping myself busy in other ways. And then a new video game came out that I've been playing the shit out of, Gears of War 5. So I'm huge Gears of War fan. I've been playing the series since its onset. So that's it, man. That's what I've been up to. Just getting down with killing some grubs and the swarm with my chainsaw gun. And watching some Spider-Man.
Cool. Yeah, so I caught this Sundance pickup from Amazon, who spent a fortune to pick up this movie called Late Night. So Late Night was written by Mindy Kaling. Mindy Kaling actually plays a supporting role in this movie as well, with Emma Thompson playing this aging out British anchor woman who has a failing late night show that she's trying to.
We ended up skipping this movie to review something else. We didn't get to review this movie, but it got good buzz when it was out.
It had good buzz, and nobody saw it. So it flopped into theaters, and Amazon has definitely took a bit of a hit. So watching the movie, it definitely has a lot of interesting aspects of touching on some sprinkled in moments with being a prickly old English woman and not conforming to what the people
Did Emma Thompson have to act to be that?
She did a pretty fine job. The problem is, it goes into a lot of cliche tropes, and I was a little surprised to see that Mindy Kaling was the solo.
Jay,
I think she was the solo screenwriter for this.
Real quick, I'm sorry. I got Instagram notification because I also post her question over there. I got 2 more votes over there, buddy.
Fuck you. You just had to rub that in.
7-4.
Damn it.
How does your good showing feel now, sir?
I want an official poll put up on Twitter. I'm going to rematch.
Not going to happen.
God damn it.
Not going to happen.
So Late Night, it was fine. I was actually a little bit disappointed overall. I thought it was going to be a little bit more fresh, a little bit more funny. It was fine. I enjoyed my time with it. It was a B- movie for me. It was nothing that special. I'm surprised they went all in on this movie from Sundance, but it was still an okay movie for me to watch. Definitely worth my time. Still checking out on Amazon Prime
and
for
now that
free.
It's streaming, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I would never go out to theater to see it, but streaming, absolutely.
Well,
check
we didn't.
It out.
I don't remember the movie we reviewed instead, but we chose to review a different movie instead of seeing that. So,
and then also I caught. I rewatched. To be honest, I saw it a couple years ago. While We're Young, the Noah Baumbach film. I wanted to watch this because I haven't seen it in a while, and I don't recall loving or hating it. And with Marriage Story coming out, that has a incredible buzz. It probably has
every time
just
you say,
as much buzz.
Every time
as
you say
Joker
Noah Baumbach,
does.
I feel like I should put up the Korath quote from Guardians of the Galaxy. Who?
He's a beloved like New York indie director.
He's
writer,
an indie director, 100%.
And so this one stars Ben Stiller, Naomi Watts, Adam Driver.
Oh, I've seen this.
Amanda Seyfried.
I've actually seen this movie.
Yeah, it's been out for a little while, and this has been hovering on Netflix for a while as well.
This is where they meet this younger couple, and he starts dressing like Adam Driver dresses and stuff like that.
And it's interesting because in the second viewing,
keeping up with the Joneses for the middle-aged crowd.
See the nuances of, they're in a weird way, kind of like the older version of the Adam Driver and Amanda Seyfried characters, but a lot more boring, a lot more dull, a lot more just nonchalant, going through the motions.
Because we all like to enjoy more boring shit when we get older, man.
True. And they just get reinvigorated and inspired by this younger couple. And they really portray the hipster New York element to a T.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they did a great job doing this. And it's just a fun watch. It's a fun watch.
I enjoyed the hell out of this movie. I remember watching it.
It's nothing overly special, but it's certainly worth your time. And then I finally got to the theaters and saw Peanut Butter Falcon. Peanut Butter Falcon was definitely a movie. From the moment I saw the trailer, I knew I had to see it. It looked really charming.
Can you please explain the title to me? This is like one of those movies where it's like, I know they're never going to say that line in the movie, so you can go, that's where it came from. That's where they got the name. I get it.
Well, okay, so it was written and directed by these guys that met
while
Tyler.
eating a peanut butter sandwich and watching a falcon at the zoo.
Right. Well, they met. So they met Zach. Zach Gajhagen has Down syndrome, and they met him, and he was teaching acting at his facility that he lives at.
Okay.
And he really loved wrestling,
and he does this great ad lib bit where he plays a falcon stuck in peanut butter.
Well, you see it happen in the movie. I don't want to spoil it, but like that's his wrestling name. I'll just say that. Obviously, it's the Peanut Butter Falcon
because he gets stuck to the roof of your mouth, and he's so hard to get off with your tongue.
And Dave, you really need to see this movie because it does touch on not just the mental health aspect, but with the residential facilities.
Yep, this is right for Amazon Prime to pick up, and I will wait for that.
Right, and I understand that. And it is definitely my top 3 movies of the year. It is really beautiful, and it touches on a lot of different kind of elements that is close to my heart. But you see him in a difficult situation where he doesn't want to be that. He's young. He's in a retirement community facility because the state has nowhere else to put him, and he's frustrated.
Oh, we've dealt with a lot of clients that had to go through similar things.
So he essentially elopes or goes AWOL, whatever you want to call it, and leaves. And he's on the run, not knowing what to do, and he stumbles into Shia LaBeouf's character,
just with a jar of peanut butter and nothing but hope in his heart.
and Shia LaBeouf is perfect in this movie and does a really good job at playing just kind of like a down on his luck. He's been through some emotional turmoil, but he is kind of on the run. He's just a low rank crabber. He's just
he's playing himself,
a hillbilly,
other than the crabber aspect.
Yeah. And he kind of takes it upon himself to help him get to
what I'm now more interested in.
This wrestling facility that he wants to go to.
What I'm now more interested in is the Shia LaBeouf video where he videotapes his face watching Peanut Butter Falcon, because that's a thing he did, Jay.
Right.
He
watched all of his movies
while filming his face, and that was for an art project. Now I want to see him add Peanut Butter Falcon to that, because he's got to get out there and he's just got to do it.
Just do it. It's a beautiful movie. Look, I'm serious. Dakota Johnson's also in this movie playing
of course, because it's an indie darling film. So
one of the care managers at the facility that he ran away from. So she's trying to find him, and the great John Hawkes is playing a bad guy trying to hunt down Shia LaBeouf's character, and his wrestling idol is played by Thomas Hayden Church.
Oh, all right, well,
right, perfect. It was really cool. There's a lot of good actors in this movie. Bruce Dern's in it.
Please tell me his wrestling name.
John Barenthal's in it.
Please tell me Thomas Hayden Church's wrestling name was the Sandman. Come on, tell me.
Oh, it's a good one though.
Right,
I'm not going to say, but
fair enough.
Please, people, seek out this movie. It is certainly one of the best little gems, indie darlings, you want to call it, out there right now. And
so, what are you giving it?
I'm giving it an A-.
Jesus, all your top films this year are A-. What are you giving A's out to?
It's really gonna knock my socks off. You know what actually didn't give it an A for me? The ending. It ended in. It was fine, but it was a little too unbelievable.
That's my problem with your reviews. You're positive about these films that you like, and then you give them A-, but you never give me any negatives on them. So, all right, but the ending was brief.
It cut off in an abrupt way, and also a cliche, too happy, cutesy kind of way to some degree.
Dude, sometimes some stories just end happy, you know?
Yeah.
Sometimes things just end happy, brother.
But it was very unbelievable.
Okay, fair enough.
You'll see what I'm saying when you see the movie, but it's still very much worth watching.
No time soon.
It's a heart flutter movie. It's beautiful.
Okay,
but it's fun, and it's got a little danger.
Apparently, it's got to be La La Land.
Oh no,
it's got to be.
It's great. It's great.
What's that other movie that you love so much?
Star is Born.
A Star is Born. It's got to be one of those two to really knock your socks off.
They're both sort of musicals, but no, it's my number 3 of the year so far. Besides Booksmart and obviously Endgame is.
Jay, we do
movies.
A top 5 at the end of the year. Don't go spoiling your top 5.
I'm just saying.
Fair enough.
Just saying.
All right, Jay, let's head over. Let's get into some beers because we got to review It. And I'm going to need a few beers just to get over some of the horrific imagery of It. And one scene in particular, which we'll have to get into in our It spoiler section. So let's head over and let's start reviewing some beers. Welcome back to the beer segment. Me and Jay got 2 beers that we are going to be reviewing for you, but before we get into that, I'm going to drop a line to our sponsor, Blowfish. Blowfish is the only FDA-approved hangover cure. 2 tablets that you drop into 8 to 12 ounces of water, drink it down, and your hangover starts to feel better almost immediately. So, if you went to your dermatologist today, got your head split open like a goddamn melon, and had some goo ripped out of the top of your head, and then sent a photo to your friend, and now you're the friend who wants to drown that image out of your head, so you wound up drinking way too much that night.
Give your friend some Blowfish.
Then you're going to want to try yourself some Blowfish. So you can get your very own box of Blowfish, the hangover cure, by going to 4hangovers.com. That's FOR hangovers.com. Use our promo code SMBFish. Get your discount and cure the scourge of hangovers for good.
I'm cured! Praise God! You're not cured yet, boy.
Super Movie Brothers is also brought to you by the Podcoin app. The Podcoin app is the only podcasting app that allows you to earn a little bit extra for all the hardcore podcast listening that you do. So make sure that you download the Podcoin app on iOS or Android app stores and start listening to podcasts. For every minute that you listen to, you can earn points. Those points can be exchanged for gift cards, or you could donate them to charity, and you can start feeling good about yourself for once in your goddamn life, like your parents used to tell you when you were a teenager. So head over to your Android or iOS app store and download Podcoin and start listening to Super Movie Brothers on there today. All right, Jay, we got 2 beers that we're going to be reviewing. Both these beers come from Susquehanna Brewing Company out of northern Pennsylvania. My parents actually provided me with these beers because they were in my aunt's fridge and she didn't want to drink them. So we are going to be their little test monkeys, like the first monkeys getting shot into space. We're going to take sips of these beers and tell everybody how they are.
Yes.
So you get started, man. What you got there?
I have the Daily Double Tea. It is 4.2 alcohol by volume. It is a malt beverage with natural tea and lemon.
So not a beer.
Not a beer.
Not a beer.
And it is exactly what it says. It does have that kind of like unsweetened tea flavor with lemon flavors added. and with a bite. As a kick, it's got a very bitter finish, and it's a little squeamish for me to drink. I'm not gonna lie. This is a hard sipper for me. I tend not to like flavored drinks or beers.
But Jay, you love Tito's and tea so much. How could this be wrong for you?
Yeah, I don't know. This one's just not quite cutting it, and maybe because it just doesn't have that kind of like sugars added to it. Like it's not.
Oh man, see,
it's very bitter.
We are having opposite problems with our beers today, sir.
Yeah, this is just a tough sip for me.
Give yours a grade. Come on.
I'm going to give this a. I don't even know how to grade it because
it's not a beer.
The description.
It doesn't even taste like
exactly what it tastes like.
Dude,
but for me, it's just like a 2 out of 5.
That actually tastes worse than Mike's Hard Iced Tea, and I didn't think there'd be anything worse than that. But that tastes worse than that.
Yes.
So I am drinking the Susquehanna Brewing Company's Orange is the New Ale because they got super creative with that. I feel like that is like a.
I like the bottle.
I mean, it's okay, but Orange is the New Ale. I feel like
I know.
That's so punny that it's not even funny. Like
they might have a lawsuit coming on their hands soon.
Not even a lawsuit. Like I feel like that's a joke like your dad would make after drinking. He's like, "Oh, there's so much orange. Oh, I guess Orange is the New Ale, huh?" Because that show's popular. Orange is the New Black. 7 years ago, that was popular, right?
Yeah.
So man, this beer, it pretty much tastes like a little bit of alcohol and some tang. Like it tastes like beer and tang put together, and
a lot of tang.
Yeah, you remember those tang commercials where like the orangutan was floating around in space, and then it would punch you in the face with like a tang and be like, "Drink tang," and it's like that's what this tastes like. I feel like this is that monkey, but this is that orangutan, but he's 21 years old now, and he's smacking me in the face with this beer. It's pretty bad. There's no redeeming qualities to it. It really tastes like Kool-Aid. Like it just tastes like candied orange flavor.
Right. And it might grow on you, but at the same time, you're going to loathe it by the time you're finished.
Absolutely.
Because it's so sweet.
Yeah. This is getting a 1.5.
Yeah.
Like 1.5. I cannot recommend these at all.
No.
And I have 2 more to get through because I have a grapefruit shandy and a lemon shandy to get through.
On to Lauren if I were you.
And just go buy.
You might have to
just go buy because I can't buy Dead Rise anymore. I found my last pack of Dead Rise. I hunted it down.
Summer is officially
over, man. Game over, man. Game over. I went on to Flying Dog's website and I looked for it. You can search by beer and state and then put in your zip code and they'll tell you the closest place to you that has it. And it was the Giant down the street. They were the only ones with it left. So I quickly went over to that Giant and I looked, and behind a Dogfish Head IPA, I could see it like peeking out. I could see the Ralph Steadman crab, and I was like, the last one in Pennsylvania. I got the last one in Pennsylvania. And then I drank them all while playing Gears of War 5. So summer's over for me, man. As soon as we get out of I guess in the next couple weeks, I mean, we're going to be getting into our Oktoberfest and pumpkin beers, because pumpkin beers is, it's the pumpkin spice of the beer world.
I love Oktoberfest beers, so I'm putting that on. But I'm excited for October.
You know what I see a lot of memes about people like and pumpkin spice, and like there's 2 camps. There's the camp of people who are like, yay, it's pumpkin spice season. And there's other people who are like, great, it's that season where I have to see a bunch of people about pumpkin spice. So I'm going to make fun of pumpkin spice. I actually find the people that make fun of the people for liking pumpkin spice more annoying than the pumpkin spice people.
Yeah,
I get tired of seeing these memes that are like, it's just let people like what they like. And these companies, as long as it sells, they're going to keep making it.
But you know why it's more annoying? It's because you're hearing it twice. You're hearing it twice.
Exactly.
So it's more pumpkin stuff on the marketing waves.
Where I could ignore the people who love pumpkin spice because it's whatever. But then when I have to hear people complaining about the people who love pumpkin spice,
hearing it double dose.
I'm just like, God damn it.
Like,
do I like pumpkin spice? Not really. Do I care that you dislike pumpkin spice? Look, even less so.
I will be the first one to admit, when they first came out with it, I remember I was like 20 years old or something like that, whatever. I loved it. It was great. It was one of a kind. But no, not anymore. I mean, it is a little much. I might have one a year, like a latte from
this year.
Shop, but
pumpkin spiced Spam. I'm not kidding you. There's pumpkin spice Spam.
Oh,
you can buy it. It's a thing. It's invaded every aspect and all classes all spectrums of the socioeconomic rainbow now have pumpkin spice to
You know what it
enjoy.
reminds me of is like how they're getting so ridiculously crazy with Oreos.
Right.
I've heard there's like a pickle Oreo.
Oh yeah.
Like what the fuck are you doing?
Do you remember? You remember Super Size Me, where he survived 30 days by eating nothing but McDonald's? Right. We should survive just 1 week eating and drinking nothing but pumpkin flavored stuff.
That's even worse. I mean,
how's that for a documentary?
I can't imagine that. You have to be on YouTube so they can actually see us suffering.
Every meal you have will have to have pumpkin in it somewhere, some way, somehow.
I mean, I'll eat the pumpkin seeds, for a snack every day. I'm cool with that.
No, Jay.
Salt them down.
I'm talking full on pumpkin puree in everything. On top of your meats and your sandwiches.
We got the meats.
Pumpkin meats. All right, Jay. We have a review.
The pumpkin strings in your teeth, like
no one says you're gonna eat it raw, buddy.
That's what I'm envisioning right now. Ooh, it's disgusting.
We got a review we got to get into. We're gonna head over and we're going to get into our It Chapter 2 review. So let's get ready for that.
Hopefully, it won't be as long as the movie.
Definitely not.
Hiya, Georgie.
It Chapter 2 sees the return of the losers 27 years after the events of It Chapter 1. They all return to Derry with a case of the amnesia, where none of them seem to remember what's going on, and it's only after Mike reminds them of the ordeals that they suffered at the hands of the villainous and evil Pennywise that they all start to remember their childhood and growing up in Derry, and their promise and their mission, if it ever returned, to vanquish Pennywise once and for all.
Yes. So Mike is the only one that stays in town throughout these years, and he has to...
And at no point does Mike look at all of them and go, what the fuck, guys? You guys are all rich, and, like, some of you are famous, and I am the guy that lives in the attic of a fucking library, and I'm the fucking town crazy guy now because you assholes didn't want to stick around.
That was one of the things that kind of bothered me. I was like, why does everybody have to be super successful?
Well, Jay, a lot of success is born from some hardship. So it's
and let's be honest, a lot of these characters, even with their success, quote unquote, they are still in a dire situation personally. Like, they are not necessarily happy.
So with the exception of, at least in the book, Billy, we won't get into the story too much because we're trying to stay spoiler free, but Billy's relationship with his wife in It Chapter 2 is different than his relationship with his wife in the original 1990s and the novel. Yes. So, but Jay, what were your first impressions on it, man? How did you feel jumping back into this world?
I was looking forward to it, and I definitely liked the chemistry with all the characters, the adult characters, seeing the young characters sprinkled in throughout the movie as well.
First off, was it not perfect casting for just about every single one
Absolutely.
Of the adult actors? Would you be surprised to know that the kids were all involved in the casting of their adult counterparts in some way?
Well, of course, but I did not hear about that. That's really cool. I mean, I guess for the most part, the most I don't want to say challenge. In a weird way, the most challenging one would be Ben. Ben, this actor Jay Ryan, had to be completely like a stud.
Yeah.
But still have that emotional.
Yeah, he looked. He looked.
There's something there that reminds you of.
It's very much a Jerry
Connell kid that was back when he was here as a kid in Derry, and you could see that oozing out of him somehow, and it was really well done.
It's very much a Jerry Connell thing. Jerry Connell thing, grows up, becomes sort of like a heartthrob type guy. I think they did a great job with that casting, but the casting they did just absolutely the best with was James Ransone as Eddie. Like, as an adult, like, he just they made him look so much like what you would expect Eddie to look like.
And Eddie is my favorite character in it. So I don't not for everybody, but for me, he is my favorite character mostly because of his I don't want to say humanity, but he's just so real. He's so himself, and he's also a bit of a comic relief. And I like him. Well, I like him on screen. He's a lot of fun.
Him and Richie, played by Bill Hader this time. And yes. I thought he was really good. He did a great job of like balancing the comedy aspect of his character while showing true horror and pain and stuff like that. But
on a lot of different levels that might get into a little bit of spoilers. So, but yeah, it was really well realized.
So anyway, and also James McAvoy as Billy,
and of course Jessica Chastain, Pauline Beverly, all very solid, well done.
Yeah. So the acting was good. I think my biggest takeaway from it was that the runtime did hurt it a lot.
Yeah, I didn't want to open up with a sour note, but that was probably the number one thing that I left the theater. I saw a late showing. I didn't get out till 1:30 in the morning by the time I got out of the theater, and I was spent. I was done. And when I reflected it back upon it, I'm like, there is so much that could have been cut out of it. And you just didn't need to have every single character go off solo.
Right. Yeah.
And then had these little different things happen. But
again, stuff that happens in the book and stuff like that. But
and let's not forget Bill Skarsgård playing Pennywise.
I actually felt a big lack of Pennywise in this movie.
I was surprised from that, weren't you?
A lot of the times when they're on their solo missions, I don't want to spoil things too much, but there's a lack of Pennywise, right? Like they do a great job of peppering him in here and there to show that like his resurgence has happened in 27 years since they've been gone. But when they're all on their solo missions, he's using other means of attacking them and specifically.
But yet also, but seeing him like well lit daytime, sometimes it kind of takes away a little bit more fear. And that was another one of the things besides the runtime that I took away from it. I wasn't really scared throughout this movie much at all. There were some good moments. There were some creepy things.
In spoilers, we'll get to a moment where I was just legit freaked out.
One of my favorite ones, which is one that you just portrayed to me before we started airing.
And I'll get to it in our spoilers.
We'll get into that in spoilers. I definitely
creeped me out.
Definitely loved. But again, he has delivered a solid performance once again. He's really, really, really
he
good
has
at
that
this.
scene with the little girl under the bleachers that just killed it for me. Like, I love his portrayal in that scene. Also, we got that extended scene of Beverly Marsh, Jessica Chastain going into that lady's apartment as one of the trailers. When she answers the door, the voice is not that old lady's voice. It is Bill Skarsgård when he answers the door for Jessica Chastain's.
I noticed something was a little off.
So that's they pepper him in like these little ways and stuff like that.
That's good.
So they definitely keep his spirit alive throughout it, even though he's not always present for it.
And that was like one of those scenes for me where like I loved up until the reveal, and you see in the trailer where where she begins to get attacked. That's when I completely lost it. I was all right. I'm out.
Yeah, I mean, but I think ultimately, like, even though the runtime felt a little bloated, and at times the suspense was stretched out too thin, where like I'm not building the suspense. There's moments where there's definitely a dip and lull in the suspense, only for it to start building up again. It's not ramping up the whole way through like it was in the original. The
suspense worked for me for the most part. It's just the scares, the big reveals, did not do anything for me because a lot of them were big, over the top CGI creatures or sequences.
While a movie has a runtime like this, I was just surprised that they didn't spend enough time really delving into all of them. Like, I felt like we got a good picture of Billy and who he's become. I felt we got a good picture of Beverly and who she's become, of Ben and who he's become, the love triangle. But I felt like as far as Eddie and Richie went, there's a little bit left wanting, especially with like Mike and stuff like that. Like, what's he really really been up to for those 27 years? Like,
Yeah.
you know, I felt like as far as like personally goes, that they were working off of what we knew of them as children to really paint our picture of them as adults. And I didn't get a feel or a sense for any of the characters really, you know, going into it, other than my attachment to them from when they were kids. And a lot of the times when they use the kids to kind of like show like a flashback moment and stuff like that, I felt the connection again. And then they come back to them as adults, and I'm just like, you know, I wanted to see more of their adult problems sort of bleeding into them now, because for that, you know, that was the big thing in the first one. Like, adults are the problem, right? I wanted them to have to put aside their adult problems to accomplish this. And I felt like while they get to that point, I felt like it was almost unearned by the end of it. Like where they're all, you know, letting go of their own insecurities as adults to defeat the monster. And it's like, but did they really wrestle that? Like, did they?
Gary Dauberman returned to be actually the solo screenwriter for this film. He co-wrote it with another person in Chapter 1. Now, it could have been a rush job. Like, he might have had to, like, okay,
nope,
we have our bullet points, we need to get to these bullet points, blah, blah, blah.
Now, this script was already written and being worked on even before the first one was finished.
Okay.
So it was not a rush job.
I just feel like
production on this film began as soon as the last one wrapped. So
I just feel like there's a mixture of, there was fat that needed to be cut, but also more development that needed to be sprinkled in.
It's weird. It's weird.
So it was a weird mixture of both. So that's why I kind of feel like it might have needed another year.
I don't want to dog on it too much.
No, I know, and I'm
because I really loved the acting. I loved all the characters, and I thought they effectively built the suspense through the entire time. It sucks that it has to live up to its first part, because the first part was so damn good that I think, you know, it's going to be tough to do that. Also, like I said in our Patreon episode for it, and for book readers and stuff like that, the adult story is not as compelling as the story from when they were kids. It's just not as compelling. You know, it's not as nostalgic. It doesn't fire on all the cylinders, right? It just doesn't resonate as hard with you, because
on an emotional level.
Exactly. There are moments where I really feel for Billy and, you know, what he's going through and his clear fucking hero complex. Jesus, let it go, dude. Just work together. But you know, there's,
and maybe it is also too, like the big climax at the final end of the movie where they're all chanting a certain word, and as adults it's kind of a little weird to see.
Right, but
it doesn't quite hit,
because they're adults being asked to believe in a magical thing. Like, I mean, so. Right. If it feels hokey to you, yeah, it felt hokey to them too. And I think they appropriately display its hokiness, but they're also there to do a thing. And damn it, they're just going to do that damn thing because they all made a promise. And, you know, we do find out that it's not just a promise that keeps them coming back, that there is more to it than that. There is a somewhat magical bond that brings them back there. It's why they all do come back. Look, I really enjoyed the movie. I thought the opening was fucking crazy, like
really crazy. I actually wanted to get into that.
Actually,
the opening was surprising.
It's actually based on a real true crime case.
Exactly.
But
it was definitely something that I was not expecting.
I believe that happened in Bangor, Maine, not Derry, Maine, which doesn't actually exist. But yes, there was a gay man who was jumped by a bunch of local yokels, and
which happens a lot. But it was one of those stories where it was really sad, and they portrayed it extremely authentically gruesome, and
then just injected Pennywise into it just for an extra, you know, as if the real world itself isn't fucking sick and creepy enough. Injecting Pennywise into it somehow made it worse.
that was probably the most visceral part of the movie for me. Surprisingly,
I love the way it opened.
I was. It was a very surprising beginning, and I was really expecting something a little bit more.
But I love that idea that it's just like, you know, crazy shit like that. This happens in the world, but in Derry, it's just another day. You know,
Right.
it's just another thing that happened. And like all these people in this town are just, it's not that they're complicit in it, you know, that they kind of, it's just that, it's just the way things are around here. You know what I mean? Like,
no, I know.
It becomes a mentality, and it's almost like this. It's strange that like you can see like things like that in your own town, really, where it's just like, oh, it's just the way it's always been. You know, it's just the way it is around here.
Classic problem. Yep.
Yeah. Where you know, this sense of community, sometimes that sense of community can also include some pretty awful shit, and you don't even realize it's awful because you're just surrounded by it.
We're still generations away from things like that changing.
So I loved that it opens that way because it's trying to show you, you know, the changes that have happened in our world since 1989 and 2016, but also very much that these problems still exist. It's a nice little social commentary,
but also
to kind of begin your film to get you thinking a little bit.
But also hopefully ground somebody who might do that in the real world. Like someone who watches this movie.
I don't think so.
I don't know.
Unfortunately.
I'd like to think so, but probably not.
Probably not. No.
So I'm giving this movie a C+.
Wow. I think that's super low, dude.
No, I was not happy with it at all.
Really?
And like I said, the runtime killed me. The characters were all well casted. It was fine, but I needed more development with certain aspects, and each character going through their own little moment with Pennywise in the middle section of the movie was very long and drawn out. And 3, the biggest thing of all, I wasn't scared. I really wasn't scared. And 4, the fucking monsters were all
the CGI,
stupid to me. They were not scary. It took me completely out of it.
The uncanny valley got to you. Yeah, I can see that.
Overall, it was fine. I'm not going to rewatch this movie, probably. Maybe not for a little while. I definitely 100%. Love the first movie. I would rewatch the first movie 100%. The second movie, I'll wait a couple years. I'm in no rush to see it again. I'll see it again, obviously, but like I'm in no rush.
I recognize and appreciate your critiques, your problems with it, and stuff like that. However, you know, other than really the runtime, that's really just my main problem with it. I do feel like it was a little bit bloated. I do agree with you that there should have been a little bit more development with some of their adult characters and stuff like that. They would have had to go a little bit off script to do that because a lot of that stuff doesn't really exist in the book. But I really think that they captured the atmosphere of the original one in a great way. I felt that they did provide me with some truly great scares. I still really enjoyed, you know, the performances. I really enjoyed Bill Skarsgård back again. You know, the end scene, they had to do it differently than they did in the original one, in the original 90s made for TV one, because that is so hokey. It is so cheesy. You know, I can't even spoil that one because I don't want to spoil anything here, but it's different than that. And I think they did it in a much more finite way than they did in that original one. And I really do love a lot of the little moments that they gave us with Bill Hader. And
I agree. They did a lot of good moments. They
did so many good things. And, you know, I really enjoyed seeing them go off on their own and have to tackle their problems and stuff like that, because it's all stuff that they have to face alone, because it's all internalized and stuff like that. Well, yeah, it was a little long. You might also have a complaint that if it wasn't that long, that like, oh, so what? So like Bev goes back to her old apartment and then this happens and then that happens and it's over in like 3 seconds. Like, you know, you might have complained about that as well. It's a tough pill to swallow. And
look, I'm just saying from my viewing experience from this movie,
Jay, the running joke throughout the film is I didn't like the ending. So, which has been the critique of all Stephen King novels, pretty much, is, you know what? It's a great novel. I just didn't love the ending. So, and I think that's what it comes down to.
It was a wink and a nod throughout the movie.
Right. So,
and it's still,
they were kind of trying to set you up for, you know what? It may not be what I'm winking every time I'm pausing between words, what you are expecting. And to me, like, you know, calling out a problem like that doesn't necessarily make it not a problem, but it does soften the blow a little bit. I really wound up enjoying the movie quite a bit. I'm not like you. There were several moments that really got me in the scare department. So, is it as strong as It Chapter 1? No. Is it really good? Fuck yeah, it is. I'd probably give this, A B plus.
Okay.
I would give this a B plus all day. I mean, I might even watch this again, watching it back to back with It Chapter 1. I might even give it like an A minus. But I mean, right now, just my initial reaction.
Come on. It's not an A minus movie, Dave.
My initial reaction coming out of the film, it's a B plus. I really enjoyed what they gave me here. I think that I think that they did the best they could with the source material that they had. I think they expanded upon it in ways that you wouldn't expect and weren't done before. But I also think that they captured the atmosphere of the original one in a wonderful way.
Well, again, we really want to hear from you guys, what you guys think of the movie, what your score is, what your grade is, whatever, your reactions, your viewpoints. Try to be non-spoiler as possible when you're in the public forum comment section, but definitely want to hear back from you guys. Obviously, Dave and I are a little differ on our overall feelings for the movie, but yeah, let's get into the spoiler section.
Yeah, let's head over to spoilers.
Spoiler warning. Spoiler warning. Spoiler warning.
All right, I find it hard to believe that you were not scared at the fortune cookie scene because, like, all right, in the original 90s,
it was creepy.
In the original,
for sure.
In the original 90s, it's pretty schlocky. It's so hokey where like the fortune cookie pops open, there's like an eye and stuff like that. So I was expecting something similar here, but when the fortune cookie like pops open and there's like this giant fly that comes out of it, at first I was like, okay, it's a giant fly. I've seen that in like The Mist. Like, what's this thing gonna sting one of them in the face and lay eggs in their face? Like, this thing could have gone around and it could have ripped all their faces off. Blood could have been spraying everywhere. I wouldn't have flinched, Jay. But this fly comes out and for some reason it's got a long neck and its face is not facing the camera. And I'm like, what the fuck is this thing? And then it turns and it's like, and it's a baby crying. And I was like, what the fuck? Why does it have a baby's fucking head? Why does it have a baby's fucking head? Fuck this shit. Fuck no. Get it the fuck away. I don't know why that creeped me out so bad, but that thing made me cringe in my seat and made like my...
Even more than seeing my cyst explode.
It made my toes curl in a way that like I don't want them to curl, you know?
Yeah, it was certainly, yeah, it was very creepy. It was very weird. It was very awkward.
Also, the scene with Pennywise under the bleachers with the little girl.
Yes, that was one of my favorite ones.
When he's like, come closer and I'll blow it away.
It was very important. I'm happy they did it. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of that. Seeing him sucker, just like you did with Georgie, sucker a little kid in. Like, almost like a one take, almost like the slow build up, how he does it, how he's masterful at drawing in his prey.
Yeah.
And then that pause
bites
and like
this girl's face off,
like just salivating over it, just trying to soak it up, the tension of excitement to the very last split second. And then he just completely unleashes his monster on her.
Another scene I really liked was Beverly Marsh going back to her house and stuff like that. Now the old lady that's like talking to her and stuff, I love the creepy stuff going on in the background when she like looks over at her and the old lady's like out of focus and she does this weird little jig.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. No, I love all that stuff. I do. I loved all that stuff.
And then when she's talking to Beverly, she's talking and she just pauses with like this weird smile. That was not something that was in the script. That was not something that anyone told this old lady to do. This old lady, again, like we talked about in our Patreon episode for It, Andy Muschietti just lets people ad-lib like a little bit. He talks to actors before they do takes and stuff, and he kind of lets them get their feel for what they want to do with their character and just go with it. And that old lady with her face just going slack and pausing like mid-sentence, staring at Beverly enough to make Beverly go, what the fuck? Like, that was Jessica Chastain's honest reaction. She thought, like, she even said, like, I thought that lady was having a stroke. Like, she thought that she was having a stroke on camera. But that's not, like,
which is understandable because you could see that she was still, like, ever so slightly moving. Like, you know, she was like, it wasn't like a trickery thing. She literally was just.
I get what you were saying with like the CGI when like the monster comes out.
Oh, when that
naked,
I was like, all right, the
hanging pendulum boobies,
flopping I was like, all right, I'm out. This is fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, that CGI
it took away the whole build up to the scene because I loved I loved everything about it before that happened, and when it came out, I was like, oh god, no.
What about Henry Bowers?
So upset.
I think that was so. First off, they did Henry Bowers better than they did in the original '90s one, and I would say even better than the book because Pennywise talks to him through the moon. He appears on the moon and talks to Henry Bowers to kind of like enslave him again into his work. This time they use his dead friend who Pennywise ate to bring back his knife to him, allowing him to escape and go after the Losers Club. You know, because Pennywise wants to hunt. He doesn't have to worry about these adults and stuff like that. So it makes sense to unleash Henry Bowers on them to go after him and stuff.
I didn't like it either.
I didn't think it worked out. However, it didn't work. I do like the moment of him and Eddie in the bathroom where like he sneaks. Now in the original one, it was him versus Mike, but in this one, it's him going up against Eddie. And I love that Eddie like stabs him through the shower curtain and the whole shower curtain comes off. I also just like, I like the craziness of him. It's like a little bit of Pennywise was put into Henry and has permanently been there, waiting to be awoken again.
I kind of like the idea. I just don't think it worked.
It was not
I don't think it was pulled. Yeah, it wasn't executed the right way.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you.
And you can kind of see, like, the adult actor does have a similar sort of look as the young kid did, but I just didn't like it. It didn't work for
27 years. You think he'd changed the mullet? You think someone would have cut that mullet off of him at some point?
Come on, man.
Even Richie makes a comment to it later on.
This is this is Hickville, man. Come on. This is Derry's not like some fucking white bread.
Your problem with the CGI, like, what did you think of the ending where Pennywise is a giant CGI spider,
Right.
Originally, in the original one, he is a giant spider. And the way to defeat him, Jay, is they flip him over like they're flipping a car. And then they stab him in his LED light's belly until he's dead. It's very anticlimactic. It's very shitty. I thought they did a far better job of extrapolating on that and making it far more interesting, forcing all of them to deal with their problems.
It was fine. I went with it okay. I just didn't. Most of my issues were the CGI creatures with the individual characters.
There's so many little fun like Easter eggs and stuff in this.
There was a lot of them.
Like, I loved when, Richie's making comments earlier on in the movie about a Pomeranian and stuff like that. They open the not very scary door and there's a Pomeranian in there. And of course it turns into a giant CGI monster, which you probably hated. But when they open up the very scary door on the far right, and it's a girl's legs running at them, and that freaks them out and they close the door. In the first one, when they opened up the scary door, it was a girl hanging from chains without legs. Mm-hmm. So I like that they're like
full circle there.
Full circle. Yeah, a little full circle stuff. Yeah. This movie also had the most usage of fake blood in a scene ever, Jay. On a week that we had just talked about Evil Dead 2 last week in my number one cult movie, which previously I believe used the most blood, and The Shining as well. The scene with Beverly Marsh inside the bathroom stall filling up with blood, that was the heaviest use of fake blood on a set ever.
And then they do like the whole scene where they're cleaning it up, and I was like, oh god.
No, that's the original one. I'm talking about this one where she's in the stall. And it's there, and the stall's filling up with blood, and each person's coming through and shouting things at her. All the people in her life who have kept her down. It's her father, it's her husband, it's Henry Bowers who pops open the door and says, "Here's Johnny." Come on, it's a little bit of a Shining nod because we got a Shining movie coming out in a month.
I know we do.
So we got
Dr. Sleep.
We got to throw those nods out there.
I hope it's good.
But there's tons of little nods, like there's little nods again to a turtle, like in the first one, which is to represent the benevolent being, the turtle that lives in the same dimension that it came from. The fact that this one's mentioning that it came from space or from another dimension and stuff like that the town isn't this depraved, that there has been a sickness, an illness to it that's been making it this depraved. I thought they did a far better job this time around of extrapolating the story and stuff like that and giving us a whole lot more to chew on than they did in the original 90s one, even though the 90s one was technically, I think, longer probably than I mean, it was
this was 2 hours and 49 minutes,
and that one was 4 hours I guess for both parts put together. So but I mean, I thought this time around everything was so well done. I loved the Stephen King cameo.
Good cameo. It was good.
Good cameo. The ending sucked. I love that. The fact that he sold Bill his own bike back for $300 and the thing's falling apart. Barely working. The scene with Bill just trying to save that kid, desperately trying to save that kid, his representation of Georgie in this world now, and failing to do so, is honestly what allowed him to let Georgie go in a way. I loved that, the way each one of them dealt with their problems on their own. When he's viewing himself in the basement from the opposite side from where he was in the first one, and the water's in the basement and stuff. Right. And he's looking at Georgie, and he's got Georgie's head on a puppet. It's been him in his head the entire time, blaming himself for this freak accident. He was more like, Georgie was more likely to get struck by lightning on his own than he was to be attacked by Pennywise. But unfortunately, Bill being there wouldn't have changed, the fact at all. And him accepting that, is what allowed him to grow. Yeah. I think they did all of that stuff extremely well. And it's that stuff that helps bring the ending to a more personal level that wound up driving it home far better than the original It movie did. And, I think that's why I was watching this and I was just enjoying myself. And you may not have liked the creepy CGI stuff, Jay, but you had to have cringed at least a little bit when they played homage to The Thing and spider legs started growing out of Stan's face.
Yeah, that was a little weird.
I'm glad that that's the response it got from you. That was a little weird. Do you have anything else you would like to impart on our audience, or is that as vocabulary deep as you can get?
Yeah, Stan...
Don't strain yourself.
I'm trying to think about it right now. So this is the problem with this movie as well for me, was that it was very forgettable for me as well. Like I was telling you in pre-production, I was a little worried because I don't feel like I have a full grasp of this movie like I just saw it recently. It's been almost a week since I saw it, and
5
for some
days,
odd reason it's just not sitting well with me. And I don't know if it was just because it was a late night, maybe I was tired, maybe I just didn't care for it and I was a little run down from it. But like,
don't remember seeing spider legs growing out of a 12-year-old's face. Like that,
it's not coming out to me right now.
It's some memorable shit, especially. Well,
I don't know why right now.
Oh my god,
I'm surprised by that.
It was a lovely homage to The Thing, the way they did it, and even Richie. They play homage to The Thing because Richie goes, "You've got to be fucking kidding me," which is the exact line from The Thing when the head sprouts legs and starts walking out the door. That's the exact same thing a character in The Thing says, is "You got to be fucking kidding me." Like I was floored by that scene. I loved it. And they did it so much better because in the original one, they showed adult Stan's head in the fridge. They wouldn't have known what adult Stan looked like, but doing it as kid Stan and stuff, I absolutely loved that. So man, I'm a little shocked that you had forgotten that scene because it's a pretty fucking memorable one. In fact, I wonder whether you fell asleep during your role at all.
But no, I definitely will look it up. I need a little refresher.
Yeah, don't bother. You've already reviewed it. You've already given your score.
I know,
but understand you were tired. You saw it late, and you fell asleep, and you gave a
no. I did not.
You gave a bad score to a movie that didn't deserve that.
No, I think it's deserving of that grade. Look, it's not a bad score per se. It's a C+. It's not that bad.
Would it be interesting for you to know that all of the kids, even in that they only took less than a year off, had grown so much that they actually had to use de-aging technology on all of them?
Oh, I didn't know about all of them. I knew a couple of them did. Yeah, and some of it was really noticeable.
The kid who played Ben, they had to use de-aging technology on him.
Richie.
They had to use it on Richie
big time
because Finn Wolfhard is like 6'2" now, and like
he's like
he's a man.
He's changed.
He's a little man. So yeah, they had to do a lot with him. The kid who plays Bill looks relatively the same. He's a little bit taller, but yeah, they had to use a lot of de-aging technology on these kids. They actually had to film it because the kid who plays Eddie grew so much that they had to dig holes in the ground and stuff to film him to stand in, so he was still short enough to stand next to some of the other people because he was shorter than Beverly Marsh in the original one, but now he's much taller than the girl who plays Beverly. So they had to like dig holes for him on the set for him to stand in and use trickery of the camera for him to stay small, which was I thought was really interesting. They also had to have him dub a lot of his scenes as well,
Wow.
so that he could do a more high pitched voice because his voice had changed so much. So I thought that stuff was interesting. Not completely seamless, but
it was fine.
They did a good enough
worked
job
enough.
that I
It
didn't.
worked
That
enough.
I didn't.
You could
notice a
tell,
lot
but it
of
didn't take you out of it.
Right. So I mean, I'm just shocked that like some of these scenes that like I'm describing that you don't remember them at all, because it's not like they came at like a moment in the movie where it wasn't like very heightened. It's when they returned to the Neibolt house, to the well house. And
I don't know, but like I said, like it was one of those scenes. I guess I just kind of forgot. It's a long movie. There's a lot of shit going on in there, or not going on in there.
Fair enough.
And again, I'll have to look into it. But
you can believe Jay as much
what
as
it
you
is.
want, but I don't. I think he fell asleep during the
I
movie.
definitely did not.
I think he fell asleep.
No, I would admit it.
I don't think you gave it its fair shake. I think you went in there not wanting to like it.
Oh hell no! I was definitely looking forward to this one. I definitely wanted it to be good. I definitely did not expect it to be this bad. But again, I didn't think it was bad. I was just a little underwhelmed from it, and it was fine. It was just had a lot of issues with it.
Yeah.
That's all.
Certainly doesn't
to me,
deserve.
it's a C plus.
Certainly doesn't
And I'm
deserve
sticking with that, but
certainly doesn't deserve the praise of the original one.
no,
But
no.
I still think it's a satisfying sequel.
Satisfying enough of a sequel
and a satisfying
even
conclusion.
with its faults.
Not crazy that there are rumors of a
prequel
of a prequel coming, because I think that kind of robs the Losers Club of their special connection.
Yes, I'm almost feeling like it's going to happen.
Yeah,
for sure.
I 100% expect it to be a new director, new writing, obviously a completely new cast and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm not too excited about it.
It's very much going to become, like, if they do that, it's going to become like the Conjuring universe, where it's just like spin-offs and stuff, and
it's going to ruin the specialness.
I'd be surprised if they even got Bill Skarsgård to return. Like I think they wrapped it up with a nice enough bow that like these two movies, they're fine, leave them as they are.
Yeah.
In 27 years, maybe give us another It. just wait that long. So that's going to do it for our episode tonight. If you disagree with our reviews for It, please reach out to us on social media. I am at Super Movie Pod on Twitter. Jay is at
Super Movie Bros Beer on Instagram and Super Movie Bros Podcast on Facebook.
And then if you would like to check out our movie cocktail episode for It is only available on our Patreon. We do have a new original cocktail available there. And we also go over the original movie and just talk about the things that we loved from it and just have a great time drinking and discussing that film. So if you want to catch some additional content from the Super Movie Bros, head over to patreon.com/Super Movie Bros podcast. And for just $1 a month, you'll get that additional content. We are also part of a network. We are part of the Podfix Network. So you can go over to podfixnetwork.com and check out all the great shows that are part of the Podfix Network over there. I want to thank all of you guys for listening. Have a great night. Cheers.
Cheers.